the reports I've had from people who have gone into the Oval Office and seen him recently are that he is super distracted at the moment, that trying to get him to focus on one particular policy issue is very difficult. He's talking about the renovations of the White House, he's talking about the Lincoln bedroom, he's in, the Pope's brother comes in for a photograph. I mean, he's not a president who is particularly, nailed in, Gene, on one particular issue. And I wonder in this, that I don't know how much currency or attention around the country the demolition of the East Wing of the White House is getting. But there is something in the juxtaposition. I mean, it's a little bit of a let them eat cake moment where the president is building a massive ballroom that presumably will have lots of gold flashed around in it.
You think?
At the same time as people are not getting their food benefits. And the governor of Virginia is even having to declare a national state of emergency in order to get people to have enough food. I mean, there is something there in the juxtaposition. I don't know if this is something that catches fire, but it seems a pretty odd juxtaposition.
Yeah, governors across the country. I subscribe to a lot of newspapers around the country. I'm an inveterate subscriber. And I was looking at their headlines this morning, and governors everywhere are having to try to step in on the food aid issue, for example, because it's just people are getting hurt. Look, I think those pictures of the East Wing being demolished probably is shocking to a lot of people. Now, I realize that most viewers have, and most Americans have not been inside the White House. They don't. You have, I have, and it was shocking to me, but I think it'll strike a lot of people that way. And yes, there is a contrast. It's for a ballroom. It's for a gigantic ballroom that's going to be festooned with more gold than probably they'll have to, reinforce the floors to hold all the gold at a time when there's this pain and the government is shut down. It's not good politically for a president. It's certainly not good for the majority in Congress to have the government shut down week after week after week. People in Washington don't seem to have a sense of how ridiculous and infuriating this is to everybody else in the country.
Yeah, first of all, I do think that the destruction of the White House, the People's House, the destruction of the East Wing has resonated with people in a surprising way. We heard Senator Murkowski of Alaska last night talking about it, how people in Alaska have reached out to her, saying this is really upsetting to see this. And some have made the comparison to that fire at the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. Yes, it's a building. It's not a person, but it means a lot to a lot of people. And here we are seeing this being done, and it's being replaced by, a ballroom surely covered in gold, paid for by the rich and corporations, that is really going to be upsetting. So it does seem like it is precisely on the nose and as a metaphor for what this administration is doing, and Democrats should make that point.
100%. And I don't know if you remember, 6 months ago, there was an AI video of Trump supporters gathering outside the White House in some near future, not with pitchforks and torches, but basically, in this new ballroom that this AI piece envisioned, we're partying, and it's come true. This has come true, and it's a visual world we live in, right? It's a 30-second look at this, and I think it will be shocking. I mean, nothing by itself. Oh, this is going to take him down. Absolutely, no. Right. But as these images mount. Donald Trump is a master of telling a story about himself, and like many stories, fictional, largely. But it all adds to the story that if you were going to write this whole thing, let's have him suddenly tear down the 18th century East Wing of the White House. And by the way, he made it worse. Okay, people might not like this, but if they'd taken some time and here's a commission to approve it or whatever, gotten people used to it, they'd go, okay. But just to suddenly come without seeing what's coming or get anybody's consensus or approval, and boom, comes in. And the images, what do the images look like? Maybe a natural disaster, or more commonly these days, war or terrorism. And it's... In this case, again, it's not a giant thing, but it's a thing that just normal folks will care about when they see this thing. And, you know, he's made it worse for himself. But of course, who he's made it worse for is his Republican minions and sycophants more than himself, because assuming he's not running again for an unconstitutional third term, he can do whatever he wants. And, you know, and the other thing about Donald Trump, and this is a small instance of it, has made himself the strong man. He owns it all. He owns the tearing down the East Wing. He owns what hasn't happened in Ukraine. He owns it all. He can't say, oh, no, it's the Democrats. Oh, it's Washington gridlock. No. He's solved that problem by just going ahead. So the political negativity is all on him and, moreover, Republicans.
Well, and in the immortal words of David Gates and Bread, in a song that Kurt Anderson used to make out to in younger days, if a picture paints... If a picture paints 1,000 words, and that picture of the White House, of the president on his own, destroying the East Wing of the White House solo, without doing what every other president has done, without, you know, Harry Truman even went to Congress when he tried to expand the West Wing, and Congress said no. Imagine that. The first branch of government being consulted on tearing up or rebuilding one of the most important buildings in America. But Donald Trump went solo, Mika. And by the way, you know, there are people out there that are saying, oh, you know, he's owning the libs. This is great. You're seeing, you know, op-eds. Oh, no, he's not owning the libs. Only 24% of Americans support this, according to a recent YouGov poll that came out a couple of days ago. How could that number have been higher? If he had talked to commissions, if he had worked as every other president would have done and explained what he was doing to say, hey, I think when we have huge events, we shouldn't have to erect a tent in the backyard of the White House. Maybe we build a larger building. Let's talk to all these people and do this where, you know, we have a partnership with these historic. He could possibly have done it that way. He never would have, but he could have done it that way, and he could have figured out a way to get buy-in. But again, that picture neatly explains what the first 10 months of the second Trump term has been, and that's been a president who doesn't think he has to consult with anybody about anything. And if courts or Congress stands in his way, then they hate America. That's at least what his supporters say.
Kurt Anderson and Eugene Robinson, thank you both very much for being on this morning. And still ahead on Morning Joe, we'll be joined by a Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in Texas. State Representative James Tallarico has generated a lot of buzz among party strategists, and he joins us next. But before we go to break, Willie, what do you have planned for Sunday Today?
Well, last week we had the great Michael J. Fox. This week, another boy from Burnaby, British